Let's get moving on here with the show, everybody. Alex Perez lit up Matheus Nicolau this past Saturday at hashtag UFC on ESPN 55 with a nice finishing sequence that ended with Perez's right fist, boom, connecting with the Brazilian's chin. The once flyweight title challenger is back in the win column. Let's hear the reaction from the panel. Nolan, we go to you in Beantown for the first take of the week.
Yeah, it was a bit, for better or worse, surprising to see, in a good way, to see Alex Perez finally have something go his way. It seems like over the last 4 years or so, just a string of bad luck, string of injuries, withdrawals, cancellations, fight results that aren't going his way, and then he finally comes out after 4 years without a win and knocks out Matheus Nicolau in impressive fashion. So good for him. I think he's kind of a prime example of someone who's unfairly targeted in the social media era. If you've seen his comments, if you've seen any time we post about him, MMA Twitter, MMA Instagram, a lot of people in the comments not saying very nice things to him. So it was a bit refreshing to see things go his way. He's been a true professional throughout it. He has not let it seemingly get to him. He's maintained his kind of, nonchalant sort of personality. So in that sense, it was very good to see him win. In terms of the division, I'm not really sure where he stands right now. He's coming off the previously he had lost to Muhammad Makayev. Now he goes out there, he knocks out Matheus Nicolau. So I think he's in the conversation for a big contender fight. But flyweight's a bit weird right now, right? Like what we see with the title fight coming up this weekend that we'll talk about. Big reach to get a title challenger. So I'm not ruling anything out, but I feel like Alex Perez kind of assured everyone he's not done. He's not washed. He's still one of the better 125-pound fighters in the world, and he set himself up nicely for a big fight against someone next time around.
And this is the division, Nolan, where rematches come aplenty. You know what I'm saying? So even though he also has a loss to the champ, just some sort of a 2-3 fight win streak, and you're right back in action. But you liked what you saw out of him. You think he's turning the page now?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's about consistency, right? Like being able to see him fight twice in the span of essentially, I think it's like 3 months or something, right? After all those
Right.
cancellations, all those withdrawals. He had only fought 3 times since 2020 going into Saturday night. So getting those reps in is huge, making sure that people don't forget you and that you kind of are able to shake that reputation as the guy that pulls out of fights or that can't win or hasn't won in 4 years. Like he did a lot to kind of push all that to the side now. I think people are going to think about going into his next fight about this knockout. Sure, like the other stuff will probably always be around his image, but now there's some momentum. Now there's something that he can point to and say, look, I'm still one of the best in the world. Give me a big fight.
Fada, in your neck of the woods, you got to stay up late in the night to get to the juicy fights, right? The co-mains and the mains. Now, this one started a little bit earlier, but what was your reaction to the fight? I mean, we don't, flyweight isn't, we look more for action rather than like emphatic finishes. But what'd you think of that stoppage of Alex Perez?
Yeah, no, I was surprised as well. Just like Nolan said, I didn't expect him to win in that fashion. I did pick against him, I believe, as well. But yeah, I mean, he's always been a very good fighter. Like Nolan pointed to earlier, the inactivity obviously harmed him. His 3-fight losing skid was to Figueiredo, Pantoja, and Mokaev, who a lot of people see as a potential future champion. And I know that fight against Mokaev was a little frustrating for him. So I think jumping into that short notice opportunity is absolutely the best thing he could have done. Got a main event spot out of it, a great highlight finish, I believe, a bonus to go with it, if I'm not mistaken. So
Yep.
this was the perfect bounce back for him, snapping a 3-fight losing skid. He had a lot going against him, back against the wall as well. So I think this is a perfect way for him to reintroduce himself. I know he said something along the lines of, I've always been good. It's just that time away obviously hasn't been able to be that active. So I think he has a notable enough name, former title challenger, that he could insert himself into the title picture with one more win, I believe. So yeah, things couldn't have gone better for him.
It kind of reminds me of Dominic Reyes, where, geez, I think he went to a split decision with the champ back in the day, and then he had all these losses in a row, and everyone wrote him off, and he's yet to work himself back. But Perez benefits from a division that has no depth. So, do you think he can? Do you personally think he's a future title contender again, Fada?
He could be, because we've seen a lot of rematches and stuff like that at flyweight. So we could, while he has fought for the title before. He hasn't really been recently in the title picture, obviously inactivity and all that. So he could, you never know. I mean, he could just be one big win away from getting himself there. And listen, you can't be more impressive than getting a knockout like that. So for him to get a finish like that, listen, there are a lot of fans who didn't watch MMA back when he fought for the title. So for people, they're getting introduced to Alex Perez for the first time, and what a way to do it.
Yeah, for sure. You're right. There's always new fans, and a lot of them came in a big wave, post pandemic, and this great run that the UFC's had on ESPN goes. If you'll recall, after Dana White Contender Series years ago, Perez came the next day to the studio. What have you liked from seeing him grow through Dana White Contender Series and now winning a title, the losing streak, and now he's back with this big emphatic KO?
Well, I think anytime you're given that main event slot, that's just so important. You have to deliver. And what more could he have possibly done than get that type of finish and then, get the mic and call out whoever you want next? It's so important. But like Farah and Nolan stated, in this division, and there's a couple divisions like this in the UFC, a lot of it has to do with your performance, right? Sometimes records can kind of get casted to the side, especially when you have people that have fought over and over, and the situation with Brandon Moreno kind of stepping back, Figgy's out of the division now. Really, I think it's going to be a lot performance based. And if you have that highlight, that knockout highlight, and if you are a charismatic guy, I think you can kind of jump a few spots. I think it does just turn into who's impressed us lately. And so I feel like he's always going to be a little bit outside looking in. People are going to judge him a little bit on his losses, but look, those are quality losses. Those are really tough fighters that he lost to. And I think he can turn things around. I think we've seen fighters do things like that before. So I don't see why he should feel like he's too far out. Good performance here, but you got to get back on that horse, get back in that cage and do it again. And I think it's a name that we're going to be talking about.
Yeah, for sure. Beautiful work with the hands. He's definitely improved. The feint game is, I think, really threw off Matheus Nicolau. Nicolau's no joke, man. He's got hands. He's got head movement. He's good at the striking game. He just couldn't get going. So props to him. Now, of course, we know these fight night cards at the Apex aren't always the sexiest ones, but come on. Give me a highlight, each of you, from the rest of this event. It was UFC on ESPN 55. Let's go back to Goes. Who else kind of shined out there in your eyes?
Well, I think Uros Medic, it was a perfect uppercut that he threw, right, against Tim Means. Tim Means is a solid veteran. And I want to go back to the main event for a second because
go ahead.
I thought Alex Perez and him did something very similar where you could just tell they were stalking their opponents and they were waiting for the perfect shot. And that was the perfect shot. And it all came down to timing. I mean, that was one hell of an uppercut, man. It was not a lucky punch. He saw it coming. He hit him right on the button. It's hard to do those types of things to a guy like Tim Means. I can't remember how many fights exactly he's had in the UFC, but he has had a lot of experience in that cage. So to be able to do something like that, I thought that was pretty amazing. That was probably one of the only times I jumped out of my chair that night.
Yeah, Means is tough, and he's been around for a while. And if I had to guess, he's in that 25 range of total fights in the UFC, but I think he's 39, and I'm just wondering, could this be almost signaling the end of his run there with the UFC? Tough dude. Very cool. We've had him in the studio again as well. Fada, how about you? What was another highlight for you from this night of action?
I'll probably go with Guskov, just because I feel like light heavyweight could always use a fresh face and a new contender, and for him to come out and knock out Ryan Spann, he looked great, and I think like I said, in a division like light heavyweight, it only takes a couple of knockouts and you can already be in the upper echelon of the division. That division, I feel, is always in need of a rising star. He's young. He's got a fun style. I know he lost to Ozdemir in his debut, but nice 2-fight winning streak. And I just think he's an exciting addition to the division.
You were going down the road of Anthony Smith. You're also seeing the resemblance like everyone else?
I guess.
Yeah, it kind of does. He's Euro Anthony Smith. Nolan, how about you? Who else? Who made you jump out of your seat?
In true MMA hipster fashion, I'm going to go all the way down the card. Chris Padilla coming in on a few days' notice there with a record that wasn't the most impressive on paper. I think there was a lot of criticism coming his way about, why did he get signed and where did they get this guy? And he's got almost half or more than half almost half the amount of losses as he does wins. And he goes out there and he beats a Contender Series signee in a matter of minutes. Goes in, gets a rear naked choke. Impressive debut, proving people wrong, and just a great win overall.
Can I throw something out there, George?
Yeah, go for it, Goose.
Joseph Bosa in the chat makes an excellent point. Says my highlight was that the UFC made history, first female cage announcer with Charlie Arnold. How about her coming in and stepping up in a position where, like, let's say one of the broadcasters had to leave or something. You have other people to lean on. This is all you in the spotlight. You've never done this before. I don't know if you looked up and down this card, but these names are not the easiest to pronounce. Like, this was a nightmare scenario, and I thought she came in and did an excellent job. So that's a great comment, Joseph.
Yeah, in the chat, you can be a part of the show by leaving a quality question and comment, or if you're funny, bring it. All right, cool. But those are the ones that get on, the haters. We ain't got time for that, right? We got an hour to do this. So let's hear what you got to say. If you have a star from the night as well, share it. And again, if I can get to it, I will plug it in there. Yeah, great shout out there. Joe Martinez was ill, and according to her, she declined initially, and then they pushed her and talked her into it. And I think the UFC has that type of culture where I think a lot of people do step in and take advantage of it. But she made history. So let's what was her name? Kathy Long, UFC 1 or 2. She did do broadcast work, right? And then we had what's that?
No, she did, yeah.
Yeah, and then we had years later Laura Sanko also doing that. So we're talking about in cage, like the master of ceremonies. That is Bruce Buffer, Joe Martinez. This is the first female to ever do it, and she stepped up and did a great job. She said she was nervous, but she loved it, and we love her for doing it. So great job. Yeah, I was just gonna say Victor Henry. We've called this fight skills. I don't know if you recall in not Fullerton, but I'm being. Huh? Yeah, bad beat. I'm out of the country for so long. I can't remember that city of industry. And I, as a local guy, I remember Josh Barnett would corner him. I just thought, okay, he's got something there. I'd love to see him in the UFC. But, Hani Yahya over the years is just someone that he's a gatekeeper. He checks you, man. And, if you can go more than one round, usually things start to look good for you. But Hani Yahya has always been a stiff test. So for Victor Henry to go in there, get the win, finish him, shout out to him.